Get out of my... We are live. Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Yay.
hello.
Happy Monday. I'm so excited because we are joined by the amazing gorgeousness that is Aakriti Kundu. Hello.
Hey. Oh, God. I'm touching things and going to get everything wrong.
Yeah. Ryan has got his mic up and I don't know what's going on. It's Monday. It's too early.
It's Monday. It's a full moon, right, tonight?
Oh my God, is it already?
Yes,
oh God,
it is.
I never remember where we are in the cycle of things. That
means it's a good day to cut your hair, apparently.
Oh, does it?
Really?
Yes, I had somebody on my Clubhouse room. You guys should definitely join me on Clubhouse. Confidence and Attitudes is our club, and we were talking about the effect that the moon has, and somebody said that's a good time, within a couple of days of the full moon or on the full moon to cut your hair. And I was like, I laughed because I thought that they were joking, and then everybody else went yes, and I was like, oh, okay. Clearly not joking.
Excuse me, sneezing. Oh God.
So because if you think about it now, because this had to be explained to me, because if you think about it, it's all tidal, right? So it's pulling your follicles up, and that's when we have fullness, and that's when it's a good time to cut it without it freaking out.
Okay, yeah, I feel like that.
Which explains so much about my hair. But anyway, this is not confidence through hair. This is coffee in the community. What you drinking? Anybody drinking?
I'm on squash.
Yeah, coffee. Oh, I know. Yeah.
Oh God, I'm not drinking nearly enough water at the moment. So I'm like, okay, we have to drink the water. I keep doing this. I'm like, it gets 10 o'clock at night and I'm like, I literally look like a piece of Ryvita and I'm like, oh, why is this? Oh, you've drunk no water today.
Ryan and I actually got to be in the same place this weekend, like for the whole weekend.
We did. It was so much fun.
We never see each other. We spend all day, every day together. We never see each other in person. So it was so much fun because we're coming slowly out of lockdown. Now, where are you, Aakriti?
So I'm based in India, where we are deep in a second wave, which seems like it's like the first wave lasted a year, and now it's the second wave. Touch wood, we're okay over. Like we are okay over here, but the whole country is in quite a state, and we can probably like take a moment of silence for everyone who's suffering because there's a lot of suffering that's happening. But I'm in India. It's stupid hot. It's like I had to like right before I got on, I was thinking I'll take a half an hour, soak in the tub and really, step into this whole feminine being. But I was just like running around so much that all I got was 6-second shower. So lifesaver. I must mention lifesaver.
Wow.
And also on the topic of like water and the moon, it is Monday, which is Moon Day, and it's also the full moon. And this is the 4th or 5th time that I'm hearing about the moon today, and I'm like, because the moon is very, very closely connected to the feminine, or at least in the chakra system, in the energetic system of the body, the left side is the feminine side, and it's also ruled by the moon. Right. So it's very cool that we should be talking about this. And also
interesting,
with the cutting of the hair, there's this, it's supposed to be the Scorpio moon, or full moon in Scorpio.
Hello today.
You will feel it.
I'm a Scorpio monster. I can trust you. Trust and believe. Trust and believe.
You will feel it in that case, because I mean, at least that's what they say. I'm not an astrological expert of any kind, but I am a huge enthusiast. So, with Scorpio, it's all about like diving deep into the parts of ourselves that we don't want to see and clearing all that up. So it might actually be like out of all of the full moons, this might actually be a really good day to cut your hair or, around, because you're just like, don't need this anymore. Chop, chop, chop.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, interesting. So do you want to just share with anybody who hasn't met you in our community before, which is probably nobody, but everybody, do you want to just share with us all that is Aakriti?
Well, that will be a very, very long introduction, so I'm going to keep it as short as possible. Like I said, I'm based out of India. That's a huge part of my story. But right now, I work with the Indian goddesses on the daily. That's the big chunk of my embodying the divine feminine, and also how I teach other people to embody their divine feminine is through working with the deities, with the ancient goddesses. I'm a spiritual awakening coach. I help you with manifestation as well. So if you're like, because pleasure is a huge part of manifestation. Hello, beep, beep,
Right.
beep. Like, no, if you don't have those certain aspects down, then you're going to have like roadblocks for any aspect of success. We'll probably talk more about that. But I used to be a dancer. I've been teaching yoga for the last 6 years now. Very long time. It's like forever. And yeah, so I've literally gone from like the body, the physical into the spiritual. And I feel like that was always the plan for me. I feel very good about it. So yeah.
How are you finding that as you move more with that with the goddess energy? How are you? Who is sort of speaking to you within that frame? Because there's so many different aspects within your work that you can kind of move through. And who do you find is sort of calling to you at the moment as you kind of work with that energy?
Very interesting question. So initially, I was called by the 4 goddesses that I grew up with, essentially, which is like a quartet, very well known and respected and worshipped in India itself. You'll know some of these. They are goddess Durga, Kali, Lakshmi, very famous, all about the money there, and Saraswati. Now, however, I'm being called by Isis, the goddess sex, magic, manifestation, like obviously. And also still with Kali. Kali is all about transformation and spiritual awakening. So I feel like she has me do a lot of her work for her. She's just like, that person.
She's delegating.
Get her. Because she's it's funny that I should be talking about her, because there's a storm that's about to happen, and Kali is like represented by like the lightning of spiritual awakening. Like, boom. So it's very intense and instantaneous work with her. And the last goddess who's been calling me lately has been Lalita, who is again the supreme queen. And she's all about like the embodied power of being feminine, and also associated with pleasure, physical, mental, emotional, sexual pleasure. So these are the 3 who are currently like really not leaving me alone.
Amazing. So for those people who haven't kind of come across this kind of work before, when you say calling to you and working with and doing their work, could you just explain a little bit about what that means?
Yeah. So it can, I think if 3 years ago, if I had heard someone talking about this, I would have just been like, what are you talking about? So I completely get that state of mind, or having those sort of doubts and questions. For me right now, what it feels like is that there is this ball of energy that I can tap into, and that I consciously tap into. If you've ever done Reiki or heard of it, if you can visualize like a little bright ball of light, this is an energy that I can channel or speak to or confer with. And what often happens is, after enough number of like, what a terrible analogy to give me, but okay. If you were to like meet a stray dog, right? Someone who's completely free, has no master, no loyalty, no nothing, but you go and feed him every single day, over and over again. You develop a relationship. The way that it builds a sense of loyalty, and now this animal has the ability to just like, look out for you and take care of you. It's a very similar analogy. It's a horrible story, like it's a horrible analogy, and it completely like it has the layer of respect is so much more. Like if someone might think like, goddess, dogs, what are you talking about? They're honestly very similar, because I feel like dogs carry a lot of that really pure vibrational energy, but it's like that. So I was very clear about working with the goddesses, so I made sure that I had a relationship with them. And now it feels like through some sort of energetic receptors, if you buy into it, if you're like, no, then I'm not going to sit around and convince you. But it almost feels like I'm able to sense information from that I should not have. Like my brain should not have that kind of information, and it comes through. And this shows up in stories that I tell to people when I'm working with my clients one-on-one. I'll have like these random analogies that'll come through, which are just like logically makes no sense whatsoever, but it'll hit the person who's listening to it in a way that makes it feel really important and personal. So the goddesses to me are an energy that I can consciously draw from, pull in, and channel their wisdom. And I treat them like they're my friends at this point, because I've been given permission to do so. But yeah, it took a bit of like building that relationship. I think I was working with these goddesses for about 2 years before they were like, okay, cool.
Right. I can totally see why you're saying about the metaphor that you use, because, and I don't think I see what you're saying as well, because it's like, if you look at nature as a manifestation of the divine, then it totally does make sense, right? And we always, any number of times we look towards the natural world as a manifestation and as emissaries of the divine or aspects of the divine. So it totally makes sense, because you want to foster that relationship with nature and with the divine, and that comes in so many different ways, and we have to build up trust to do that. I mean, how did you learn to trust your own process of, especially when it comes to pleasure, because pleasure is such a many splendid thing, and there's so many different aspects of it. How did that manifest for you?
Oh, great question. Firstly, I want to just reiterate that point that you made about nature and the divine feminine being so interlinked, because in almost all mythology, it does say that Earth is feminine, and the world was born from some cosmic womb somewhere. So it's like everything that exists in a way could be, when you say, God is in the tiniest little particles, it's like God and goddess, like, the masculine and feminine, both of them exist. And creating that relationship is super important. For me, with pleasure specifically, I think I bumped up against not being in my pleasure a lot. I'm sure like anyone who has tried to build their confidence has probably come across this aspect of trying to like push through it, effort. It's just like, look at, where are you the most afraid? Like, face your fears head on. And especially for like women who are not tuned into their divine feminine, that can feel really grating as an experience. It can be just like you're taking your soft little vulnerable heart and just like cheese gratering it. And at the end of the day, like, you don't necessarily have more confidence, or you don't necessarily have more of whatever it is that you wanted to. You might just be carrying more guilt, more shame, more fear, and that's where I was. It's a self-perpetuating cycle. So for many years I was there. But I remembered, as I started working with the goddesses, I was reminded that at least physical pleasure and orgasm is something that we know as children. So I personally remember like having discovered it probably at age 5 or even before, and then being shamed for it, right? Like shamed for exploring my body, shamed for exploring pleasure. But thankfully, again, touch wood, thankfully, I did not, I internalized a lot of crap through my childhood, but I didn't, for some reason, internalize that pleasure, this sort of pleasure at least, was wrong.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of us take that message home, and then we just kind of shut pleasure out of our bodies. And for me, thankfully, that didn't happen. So it was easier to kind of drop into it. But like discovering pleasure was its own journey. Things like just being able to take that extra 5 minutes in bed where you just want to snuggle or, you know, stay under the blankets. That was probably the first step that I climbed in my journey to try to reclaim pleasure. Because there's a lot of clearing that had to be done. There was a lot of deconditioning that had to be done. So many fears that you kind of have to look at head on and then slice through, which I'm very grateful that the goddesses were there to support me through that, because they have the ability to just like jump in and, you know, clear everything out. And I'm only just now seeing all of the comments. Wow. Okay.
And I thank you so much for talking about that as well, because I think it's one thing that I think we all need to be a lot better at is being really honest about the fact that we have to push through that and reclaim it, because the world in general tells us to not discuss pleasure, not to treat it like the revolution that it is, and to not allow ourselves to even discuss it in the first place. We're not even supposed to acknowledge pleasure unless there's a specific use for it. And I mean use, you know. There's this idea that the only time we can discuss it is when it's part of the process of, like, I don't know, having children, typically speaking. And then anytime it's not, it's kind of considered, oh, well, that's not acceptable, we don't talk about it. So thank you very much for being very honest with that, because it is so, that is one of the you know, we talked about this recently with Heather, Heather Smith, who's in the chat at the moment, talking about this Lydia Lunch quote that I often reference, you know, the most radical act of the first thing to take from you is pleasure, and the most radical act is to take that pleasure back. So with that in mind, how does that manifest for you in your work? How do you help people sort of like push through that? Because it's such a major process, right? Oh yeah. It's a deep process. Most of the women who come to me have been working on themselves for a while. So we've got like some of the very basic surface level stress, tension, you know. Sure. You've got that stuff out of the way, and you also have some sort of foundation to understand how does the energetics of the body work, how does the energetics of the universe work. Like, you need to know those, because if I spend all my time teaching that, like, we'll never get anywhere. And then for the real meat of the journey, I spend a lot of time working on their inner child, so their childhood wounding. Because, like I said, five-year-old me remembers. Like, I remember at 5 just being like, mom and dad seem to think this is wrong, or, you know, so-and-so's mom like really screamed at me for saying or not saying, or doing or not doing XYZ. And then it's very normal for us as children to just internalize those things and make it about us, because nobody explained to us that it wasn't, very simply, because we're so open as children. We're just picking up information from everywhere. We're learning about the world based on how people are interacting with us. So the more cut off from themselves the people around us are, the more we like take on their shit. So we go through a lot of inner child healing. I also do a lot of healing around their mother and father lines, depending on, you know, how the relationships were. If there was any trauma, it doesn't necessarily have to be like you know, molestation or abuse or anything. Sometimes it's just like, I was neglected as a child. Like, I asked for things and my parents told me, like, we don't have the money for it, or, you know, it's not your birthday, or why don't you save for it and then you'll get it. And what that kind of teaches us, especially as women, and I'm sure as men who have grown up in this time and space as well, it teaches us that you're not worthy, you know, you don't deserve something, or the only way through is hard work. So we've got like this whole badge of honor system about struggling and working hard.
And what's most frustrating is that it does not work. It just doesn't work. I don't know one person, and I know a lot of people who believe in this whole hard work bullshit paradigm, but I don't know one person who will like turn around and say, I worked hard, now I'm super successful, and you should do it too. I hear I worked hard and you should do it too, but not the middle part, right? So that's where the magic of pleasure is really missing. That's the gap. That's the hole. And what's interesting for me is that when you're in your pleasure, like true pleasure, not the kind of vindictive, vengeful, I'm going to post about this all over my social media because,
I'm out.
Yeah, not that sort of like, look how happy I am, but actually I'm going to cry myself to sleep later tonight. The real true like moment to moment pleasure, when we think about that, that's when you're most in your power for anybody, right? So pleasure is power. And no wonder people took away this whole concept and the process and the information around pleasure, because it's like, we don't want their thinking, I don't even know how many hundreds of years ago, was that there isn't enough power to go around, or if we take their power away, then we gain some, I don't fucking know. But the divine feminine specifically is just like, the fuck do you need power over other people for? Like, can you handle your own life, please? Like, why don't you pleasure all the way up? And you'll notice, like, right after orgasm, you don't want to like crush people and destroy homes. Like, you don't want to be a pirate at that point of time. You're just like, yeah, life is good. Let me just soak in this feeling. And I use orgasm especially like if it freaks people out, good, because that's a sign that says that you might have some wounding around it, you might be carrying some baggage around it. But orgasms are fun, they're good. You don't need to know anything, like, across all religions, across all cultures, people know that shit is good. And the way that we are forced to give our power up is by buying into this idea that it's not, that it's bad. So we work through a lot of that, the childhood healing, the wounds with mom and dad, and maybe even ancestral wounds. So especially people of color, of any level of color, we have ancestral wounding in our DNA that we are carrying through, which we may not even realize. So I worked through that as well. It was a very interesting journey for me to like notice that, I seem to be fine on the outside, but internally, like there's a thorn that's pricking me, and it's part of this whole ancestral journey. So we clear that out, and if there is any time left over, then it's all about like rocketing up to like living in pleasure, embodying pleasure, being in that state where you can, like I was speaking about earlier, manifest in just an easy, abundant, pleasureful way where you're not trying to force things. You're not trying to like emotionally like heart grating.
Yeah.
Are there simple things that people listening can do to just unblock some of those pleasure blocks?
Good question.
Oh, yeah. So there are some simple practices that I do usually have people start off with. One is, people are going to hate this, but one is meditation, because meditation, or just like silencing your mind. Now, how you meditate, I don't give any fucks. Find something that works for you, because the end result of having that calm mind is very close to pleasure, very close to pleasure, right? So or rather, one of the reasons why we feel like we're constantly seeking more is because your brain doesn't stop talking. And in that moment of like silence, even if it's a couple of seconds in the day, you're actually able to find a vibration or a place where everything is fine. And that's one of the things that pleasure gives you, is that feeling of it's all fine, it's okay. So definitely meditation is a great place to start. Another one would be breathing. So working on like being able to take, actually, if for everyone who's watching now or on the replay, all of us together, let's just do it, right?
Yeah,
so just take a quick scan of your body. If your feet are on the floor, great. If they're like crossed, just uncross them, uncross your hands, uncross your legs, and just take a quick scan of your body. See how your head feels, how your neck and shoulders feel. If stress is common for you, then neck, shoulders, back, hips, maybe even your knees. Just going through all of these parts of the body. And rate yourself on 0 to 10. How stressed out do you feel right now? 10 being like, I'm a ball of nerves and everything hurts and everything sucks. And 0 being, yeah, I'm fucking great, man. Like, chilling. Just rate yourself on how stressed out you might be feeling right now. And we'll just do 3 very easy belly breaths. And we'll see how that changes. So if you've got your numbers, you can actually put your numbers into the chat, just so that we can also keep an eye on how your stress levels are right now. And mind that your stress, like you may not have had a very stressful day today, but you might still be very high up on the stress level, right? Because our bodies just carry that. So once I'm seeing some numbers come in. So make sure that you put your numbers in before you start. I'm going to put one hand on my heart over the chest, one hand on your belly. If you're driving or doing something where you can't close your eyes and can't use your hands, come back and do it later. No worries. But if you're all set up, you would just place one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart, and you're going to breathe into your belly. So imagine that with your breath, you can't see me, but with my breath, I'm going to try and push my hand away. Right. So as I inhale, inflate the tummy, and then as I exhale, allow the tummy to relax. Yeah, so you're not trying to like crunch it, but you're just allowing it to relax. As you inhale, as you exhale, release. As you inhale, allow the belly to inflate. As you exhale, release. I said 3, but you can do another 2 if you want. And this time, just like watch your brain. What's happening in your mind? Is it as loud and crazy as it was? Has it calmed down? Are you so present in your body that you didn't even notice what was happening in your mind? And on your last exhale, release the hands. If your eyes are closed, keep them closed and just do a quick stress check of the body again, 0 to 10. How do you feel, especially in the neck and shoulders, in your back, and any area of the body where you might have had pain? And you can put your after numbers into the chat as well. Leave a comment with your after numbers. Yeah. And notice that any shift that you have is actually like you letting in a tiny little percentage of pleasure. It's not 100% unblock, because again, like I said, we've been carrying these stories, we've been carrying these blocks from all our lives. Most people, all our lives, we've been carrying all this stuff that other people have told us, and all of this stuff that we've been retelling, like these shitty stories that we've been retelling. So you might go from like a 10 to a 0. And if you don't go from a 10 to a 0, just know that whatever you let in, that was good. And just like checking into your body and saying, does this feel more like pleasurable or like not pleasurable, right? I think the biggest the biggest tripping up point is that we see pleasure, or like we see the word, and then we start retracting because it's like, is this about sex? Is this like a sexual thing? What does this mean? Because we're not hearing the word nearly as much as we should. We're definitely not using the concept of pleasure. We're not utilizing pleasure enough to help us. So simple things like even like allowing your mind to take a few moments of calming down, very important. Allowing yourself a few moments of things that you actually enjoy. For me personally, it's like being able to lay in bed an extra 5 minutes. Right, an extra 5 minutes. It's just like, it's everything. Being able to actually give yourself permission to eat what you want, because a lot of us have we have such enmeshed weird relationships with pleasure that food seems to be the only acceptable source of pleasure. So a lot of us have taken our frustration and lack of pleasure and turned it towards food. And anytime that you do that, it has an effect, and usually a negative effect, on how you relate to that thing. So of late, I've just been giving myself permission, and anyone watching can do this too. You can just give yourself permission to say, okay, what is it that I would really, really, really enjoy eating or doing or listening to or watching right now? And then giving yourself permission to actually do it and really enjoy it, So if you're going to have that piece of cake, like, don't eat it with guilt. Take a moment, maybe do the breaths before, and just be like, I am going to enjoy this.
Yeah.
Right? Can you sense it? You're I can already taste the chocolate in your mouth. That was real for me.
You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's interesting because that changes. So Ryan and I changed it to this one. This is messing me up. I can't do the three of us together. It's just like but yeah. So Ryan and I had a fairly indulgent weekend with lots of. Well, I had lots of junk food. Ryan was very pure, but so weirdly, normally I would be fully with you because I don't eat the chocolate stuff. I don't eat all the junk food. I never have it in the house, even when I crave it. So permission to enjoy for me is that I actually have to make the effort to go and get it or make it or do it, but today, and today it's this, I'm dehydrated. It's pleasure for me right now is I just need more water. Yeah. And I've got a little bit of fruit juice in there, so there's a little bit of flavor and whatever. But it's not always about having the chocolate cake, although indulgent. Often. Yeah. But when you have overindulged, it's just like checking in with your body. I love what you're saying there, and just saying, what do I need? What will feel great?
Yeah. And that can change from day to day, from time to time. It's just more often than not, because I used to work in dancing for a while. Then I was a personal trainer. Then I was into yoga. Like, I've watched people try to lose weight all my life for the last probably since I was a baby. I've been watching people struggle with weight, and it was very clear to me in the last 2 years that it's because there's so much of this self-starvation. And that's self-starvation of pleasure, essentially. But it plays out in different ways, like slapping your hand away from the food that you want to eat, the pleasurable tastes, not allowing yourself to spend the money that you want to spend to buy the thing that is going to give you so much pleasure. Just not going after the opportunities or the chances that are just going to light you up. Those are all ways that we starve ourselves. And it creates like this insatiable hunger thereafter, right? So that's where you get that whole binge cycling. It's not just with food. It's literally a state of emotional wreckage that can play out in all aspects of your life. So with the lottery winners and the money spending, for example, never had money, now I have money, I'm just going to blow everything. Never had chocolate cake, never had sugar. It's like with kids, when you don't give them, you don't give them sugar, and I totally get it. And I'm not saying that you should, do whatever you want with your children, but you see this often when they've been denied something, they go like gangbusters and they lose their shit thereafter. And our bodies are essentially the same. So if you've starved yourself off of pleasure for years, decades, your entire life, it can feel like an addictive slippery slope. But the thing is, with true pleasure, once you're at that, when you're not just eating chocolate cake for the sake of like saying fuck it to your diet, when you're eating it from that place of wanting to just like enjoy it and give yourself permission. You're like, if I want more tomorrow, I can have more tomorrow. You'll see like there's a natural tapering off. You're not going to be as dependent on the external thing, because your pleasure is like it's almost a different paradigm. It's not about the stuff, but it's an energetic thing. It's a vibrational thing. It's about how you see the world. I honestly believe that you can have pleasure just by like walking through your life. All the little things that you do in life, you can experience deep pleasure in that. And that's what the monks, or like the really spiritually awakened, the enlightened people, that's what they're on. Like they're not on any other drugs. They're just infused with pleasure in every moment of their life. So it's weird that we're in this state. I'm glad that we're at least awakening to it, but it's weird that we have been in the state of just denying our pleasure and being so feeling caged and like the pleasure is just out of reach. I can't get there.
Fully. And I loved what you were saying about that, actually, because it's like, you're so correct. There's this idea of like, it's almost like we kind of are taught to make the cage that we exist within the thing that we want the most. It's such a trick to kind of be made to feel like that. And it's this whole thing of like, when you said about like the idea of like, having to be so in control and like having to, depriving ourselves is the way forward and that's such a, that's such a thing for so many people. I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and they sort of said, oh, well, I had to stop my mother the other day because she wouldn't do anything to allow herself to relax. And I found her at 7 a.m. outside doing all of this stuff that was really like heavy work that she needed to do, all the while she's been told not to do any of that stuff because it's really bad for her. But she was like, oh, well, it's important. I have to do this. And she's like, nothing is important for you to do right now. Yeah. You need to relax and enjoy things and take a second and a beat, but it's so programmed into us. No, we must work, we must struggle, we must, only seek to survive, not thrive, that whole thing. I love that you talked about that. I think it's so important.
Yeah. And there's a large aspect of like needing to earn it also, especially actually, you'd be able to speak to the male point of view, but for women, we haven't traditionally held jobs. Like we haven't had, ways that we earned it through like working wages. So we've had to like manipulate and, go around things, and just like we've learned all these weirdly insidious ways of trying to prove our worth to everyone around, so that when you do take a break, when you do take those 5 minutes to yourself, that you've been taught like you have to. It's almost like this terrible boss who's like, you took 5 minutes extra on your break, how dare you? And you're like, no, see, I did like everything on my chore list. I did everything. I deserve to take that 5 minutes. But we're essentially taught that you don't deserve it. And the list, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it was like this always. I was told like, clean your room, and then do your homework, and then, take the dog out for a walk, and then you can watch TV. And so I would do all of that, and I would do it all really quickly because I had this show I wanted to watch. And then my mom would like, surprise, add 3 more things to the list. And I was like, son of a fucking bitch, what is happening? So if that's what you see and if that's what you learn, you internalize that. You tell yourself, in different ways. Okay, thank you. You tell yourself in different ways that nothing I do. One second.
He wants to come on screen.
Yeah,
yes.
Little puppies.
He wants to come and share.
Oh dear.
That's amazing.
She's a fiend. I think we've all seen the YouTube of like people on work calls and calls in general, and the dogs are using their shit. So I got one.
I think it's great. I think it's hilarious.
We've had it before where Chase has jumped suddenly into frame and just put his paws on Heather and just gone, no.
Yeah, just suddenly blocks me.
You're done.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah, so when you internalize that kind of story, you don't need and that's how this whole like power dynamic has worked for so long, is that if you constantly need a second person to tell you, like, that's going to get over really soon. But if you can be trained to make yourself stay in the cage, the power, like the status quo remains. So we unfortunately have that as a collective. We've taken on that really weird programming, and it's pleasure is the best way to break out of it.
And even in the cultures where there are several generations now of women who worked, we are still much more likely as females to be working in the home, to be doing a much larger percentage of the the housework and the child care and the everybody else's care, and then what's left is for us.
Yeah, and that's an impossible like to-do list.
Yeah,
it's an impossible to-do list. You cannot under like there's even a superhuman like superhero person would crumble under that kind of pressure, and we expect women to do it on the regular without complaints, without taking time for themselves. Like, it's like, what nonsense.
Yeah, and I think that's the bit where you can very easily convince yourself that you're really happy in all of these things. You're really happy doing the working and the childcare and the housework and the all of the different roles, and you it's a little bit like convincing yourself that you're really enjoying that carrot. If you're not, you're not.
Yeah. Well, it's not a carrot. It's a turd painted red. Like for some people, like that's what they want to do with their lives, and for them, yes, carrot, shiny golden carrot. And for most people, and this is why you see so many women later on in their lives being like, no, fuck all of you. I'm going to do what I want to do. Right? They're just like, what have I been doing with my life? And unfortunately, like, it's there's so much of this there's this tension because it's difficult to and most people don't even realize that we're doing it to ourselves, so we automatically assume that it's other people doing it to us. So there are like these kerfuffles that happen, and these amazing blow-ups rather than breakups. Like, everything is just like exploding all over the place. But at the end of the day, like, that is the revolution. That is what was within all this time, and we have been trained too well to like shut that down, to push it down, to not talk about it, or to just pretend that it's all okay, and then just waiting for that release. And I think it takes even that, to be fair, even that takes so much courage. I'm 100% like going to cheer everyone who has ever taken a moment to find pleasure, to enjoy themselves in anything. It could be as simple as like taking that soak. I have a family friend who has just a lot of pain, just a lot of physical pain, and it's because she's the typical, working a very high level, like demanding job, having 3 children, being the chauffeur, being the housekeeper, being the nanny, like having all of these roles, and her body is literally not able to take it. And she's just like, Akriti, I have so much pain. What do I do? And I'm like, how about just like for half an hour, take a bath and like lay in the warmth of the water and let that warmth of the water really support you. And she's like, yeah, I could do that once a month. I'm like,
yeah.
I want to say absolutely start there, but what I was talking about was like at least once a week, or at best at least twice a week or something like that. But the fact that she only considered herself to be worthy of 1/2 hour once a month I was speechless. I was like,
yeah. And it's the same with, you were talking earlier about meditation. That doesn't have to be a long, you don't need an hour. You don't even need 20 minutes necessarily. That's the same. It's like breathing. I mean, how long were we breathing? Like 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Making those shifts.
Yeah.
I love it.
Pleasure is possible in the tiniest little things. It's like I said, it's about a paradigm. It doesn't have to be a journey. Like you don't need to go out and do like a year-long course on pleasure, and you don't have to go and become like a tantric sex goddess coach, whatever. You can literally start to find pleasure in those moments in between. So it's like I don't know if any of you in the audience do this, but when you get something you really want to eat, like do you eat it over the sink, or do you put it on a plate and eat it on the table?
Oh, never, because I never enjoy it if I eat it over the sink. That's a guilty. If I'm eating over the sink, that's because I know I should not be eating, or I believe I should not be eating it, and I feel guilty about it, and there's shame in that. So I don't do that.
Exactly. And if that's how, I mean, it's a very small, in terms of action, it's a very small change. It's like it'll take the same amount of time.
Yeah.
It'll take the same amount of time. The gobbling of it will take the same amount of time. But it's being committed to being able to receive the pleasure. That's the biggest block for
receiving pleasure. Oh, that just makes me feel ill.
Well, see, that's what I mean.
Like
we can talk about concepts and in the mental realm for days, but when we talk about like embodying it, like receiving pleasure is the way of embodying pleasure. Right? Like you can make pleasure, maybe, I don't know, but to actually let pleasure into your body is to receive it. And I know that receiving makes a lot of women just sick to the stomach, makes you want to throw up. It's disgusting because of that, that story that's been running alive in your mind. So it's been dictating a lot of things, and this is the biggest reason why I was just so ecstatic to share this work with the world. I'm like, this is what we need. This is what we need. Like if we're talking about this is going to be fun. So when I was in college, when I was younger, I heard of my friends would share, like, I've never had an orgasm, I've never come. And I would just kind of look at them and be like, never? Not once? Like, you're what, 20 years old? How has that happened? Never? Not what? How? And then they would talk about like faking orgasms and this and that and that. And that to me is just like, I'm like, you are robbing yourself of pleasure, right? Like, who does that serve? Who? And what did they do that they deserve the, whatever it is, the pleasure of knowing that it was good? What did he or they do that they deserve it and you don't. How it does not make sense to me. But I know that for a lot of women, that's what being a good girlfriend or being a good girl in a relationship means, is to sacrifice. And I'm just like, no, girl, you have to learn to receive. So yeah, learning to receive is a huge part of that. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Oh, you okay?
I think I swallowed my hair. Anyway.
I mean, I always love you, but I especially love you when in these moments.
I was just going to say, I don't think that's the idea of receiving pleasure in this way. I don't think that's not the embodiment of that.
No. If it makes you gag, that's probably not receiving pleasure.
Well.
No kink shaming.
I mean, everybody has their own.
Not shaming. Everyone has their own. Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
But you're so right, though. Like, it's such a sad sign of the times that people talk about faking an orgasm before they talk about experiencing an orgasm.
Yeah,
like that's such a concerning point, and that should be a point where everybody goes, "Oh my God, something is wrong," you know?
Yeah, because you are again giving away power by giving away that opportunity for pleasure, and you're supposed to be doing that for somebody else so that they feel like you're having pleasure, or you could just have pleasure and then they would feel like you're having. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're going to give that away to somebody else, then at least make it real. Like it's a very strange cultural thing that we do that.
I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. I cannot tell you that I get it because I don't. But that being said, a lot of people think that in order for me to have pleasure, someone else has to learn to give me pleasure. And this is true, not just in the bedroom, but not just sexually, but in general. Like, if it's my partner that's keeping me in these roles that I don't like, then it's my partner who has to learn how to. No, nobody else. It's nobody else. The first person who has to learn to shift into the pleasure paradigm is you.
Right? Oh, I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Because ultimately we have to be in control of our own pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love it. I could talk to you I could always talk to you all the time anyway. But it's so much fun. And the only thing I wanted to say was, again, like, you decide what pleasure is for you, right? Yeah. You get to decide if that's chocolate cake one day, and if it's water one day, and if it's, being out in the sun or having a bath one day, or if it's not, you get to decide, right? Like, I have done this. I have sat in baths. Ryan will attest to this, where I have sat there with a timer going, I'm supposed to enjoy this for 30 minutes. It's still 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
I hate it. And then it ruins the rest of my evening because I'm exhausted and I hated it. So you get to decide what, but I'm supposed to do it, right? It's like, okay, I'm supposed to do this. My chiropractor says this is good for me. I'm thinking, I hate this. This is homework for me. I would rather eat carrots.
So for me, like, when I'm working with someone, the first, like, we have to establish what is your baseline of receiving pleasure now. If you're at an absolute zero, then I'm not going to have you, throw yourself like a fucking bachelorette party rave sort of thing with everyone worshiping you, because that is going to make you like break out into hives and throw yourself, into like a room and lock yourself up all night. It's really about, if you can't handle, okay, so for example, if anyone is having this feeling where they're like 30 minutes in the bath, like, I would rather, I don't even know. I like 30 minutes in the bath. But if that's where you're at right now, then what would be helpful is doing something else while you're in the bath that could be fun. So it could be reading a book, watching your favorite Netflix show. It could be like just calling people up, if you can, video. But otherwise, just like calling people up, chatting with friends, just having just like making a fun time out of it, right?
Yeah.
I know people who during the quarantine have actually done this. They've had like bath parties where everyone just like gets into the bathtubs and they do like a mass Zoom video. They wear whatever they want to or don't. And they basically get their 1 hour or half an hour of chilling in the tub to relax while also catching up with people. So it's about knowing yourself enough or giving yourself enough room to figure out what it is that you can actually handle at this point, and then gradually, close enough, gradually moving your way up the scale to be able to embody more of it more of the time. This light is just, it's possessed.
I was going to say, what is going on? It's lighting up to say, this is it. This is it.
Yeah, but that's really true, actually. That is really true. It's finding it's not the bath itself. It's what are you doing with that, and how could you be enjoying that? And that's the same with people's sex lives, right? It's like, it's not sex itself. It's what are you doing with that and how are you enjoying that and so on. And actually, orgasm isn't the point in every scenario, So, but what is that? And how do you enjoy that? And, it's as simple as I can enjoy water more if I have some squash in it. Do you know what I mean? It's just finding those, I don't want to be doing this, but how can I make it enjoyable? Put on some music and do your housework if you have to. There are ways to find pleasure, even if you don't have time. And I'm going to dispute that you don't, but you don't have time, and you're because I've been there where your whole life is have to. And it feels like, it's very reactive, and it's very hard to push back and establish or enforce your boundaries. And it does feel like there just isn't that time, and that's fine. Your baseline starting point is all your have to's, make them enjoyable. Put on some music if you have to do your housework. Yeah. I mean, I have tried this experiment many, many times. Dust eventually stops accumulating. It doesn't get any thicker. Well, it does, but you stop noticing. So I question whether you have to do housework, but fine. If you feel you have to, because that's your thing, then cool. But I'm just saying, find a way to make that can be your baseline, is put on some music and dance your way through it, or, do things that, if you do an exercise, then find something that you love doing. I mean, you and I have talked lots of times about aerial and pole and stuff, and it's such a laugh, and yet I'm not strong right now. I'm not nowhere near able to do what I was doing a year ago at all. But so maybe I just put the pole on spin and I just twirl around it or spin around it or roll on the floor around it, or, so that you're still exercising. It doesn't have to be evil, but it's finding that baseline. I love what you're saying about that. And that is true for everything.
Yeah. These goals that we give ourselves are usually far more in line with the self-deprivation than the pleasure. So and that's just how the entire world works. Like this is an experiment I'm doing right now where I'm trying to dial up how much pleasure I can have in every given day. And there is so much resistance to that, because the first question out of the gate is like, well, who the fuck are you?
Right.
What have you done in your life to deserve whatever X, Y, Z, to deserve the cake, to deserve the bath, to deserve 30 minutes to yourself? But if I can just observe that thought process and recognize this is not me, and B, I don't need to have done something and I don't need to have earned pleasure, that's just my natural birthright. It's a little bit of you have to twist your mind's arm into letting you do that. Because if you don't address that internal conflict or dialogue, you'll be exactly like in that bath for 30 minutes, hating every minute of it.
Right.
And that's just completely counterproductive. And then the next time you have to give yourself permission to do something pleasurable, the mind is going to dredge up that old memory of like, remember, you tried this and it sucked. So we want to just give ourselves permission to do it in tiny pieces more often of the time, and find that magic formula, what works for you. It is a magic formula for you. So find the magic formula for what works for you, how you can let pleasure in little tiny bits. It helps if it's not directly related to something that you're super intensely, attached to. So you may not be able to find immediately ways to find pleasure in a relationship that is quite conflicted, or that you have a lot of contradictory energy about. You may not be able to find pleasure in money right away if that's something that you've struggled with. But you can find pleasure in playing with your dog, for example, right? Just the fact that she's running around so happy, running after a ball. You just like, look at that idiot, so cute. Like that could be all the pleasure that you can currently handle. But from there, you get to build, because now you're shooting yourself with like little doses of that pleasure sensation, and you're like, oh yeah, that was fun. Oh
yeah.
Right.
Nice. Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh, I love chatting with you.
Me too.
I love chatting with you. We are not done with you. We're not done with you. We'll bring you back over and over and over again.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
My pleasure.
Yes.
This is the formula for pleasure.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, it's such a pleasure to chat with you. I just love it, and it's been too long because we need to make the time.
Yeah.
I'm
in
this bath Zoom party. If you want to do a bath Zoom party, I'm fucking in that. I'm all over that.
100%. Let's chat about it, because that's you just like bring your day. If you don't specifically need a therapist, you just need someone to talk to. Like that's where you can do it. Just grab your favorite drink, whatever it is. Like let loose 100% and just like chill out in the tub. It's so fun. It sounds so fun. I haven't done it yet, but it sounds so fun. I'm
But you've also had a bath, so you're multitasking without 100%. Effort, and it's so much fun, right?
And I know with you guys, I'm just going to be laughing my balls off. So that'll be so fun.
I don't have a tub anymore. I lost mine.
Right. So funny story. So Ryan.
Oh, funny is it? Funny.
It's very funny. It's very funny to me. Because Ryan this is my pleasure, Ryan. Ryan didn't have a tub, or he had a tub, but he didn't like baths. And we used to agree on this no bath thing.
Yeah.
And then he made his bathroom all beautiful, and it was painted, and it was all lovely. And he decided that he liked baths, and he would go and have them, and it was a pure pleasure. And then shortly after that, he moved. Now there's no bath.
I got evicted. Thank you.
Well, okay.
Shortly after that, we got evicted because our house was sold by the landlords, and we just painted it this beautiful shade of blue, and like we'd made all the shelving in there, and it was like so gorgeous, and we loved it. And then what happens? Eviction. Great.
That wasn't funny. The funny part was the no bath after he just found his bath.
Oh, I fully loved that bath.
Well, to be 100% like transparent, we don't have the concept of bathtubs in India. Like we're consistently short of water. So I literally bought like a kiddie's blow up, like
bath, I love that.
The tub thing.
Yeah.
Supposedly play, and that's my bathtub. So I have a blow up bathtub in my bathroom, which cannot even handle a regular bathtub.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
That's a great way to do it. That's a really great way to do it. We could just have a paddling pool party if anybody's up for that.
Exactly. And it comes back to that whole point of I know that I need to be around water, like submersion water, for any amount of clarity of thought. And for how many years am I alive now? Too long. I was just like, I don't have a bathtub, so I can't do that. And then somewhere after doing a lot of this very important work, my brain just clicked. It was like, well, they do have those tiny splash pools for kids. I could probably fit in one of those. Like it gets one of those.
Yeah, right.
And once you see the solution to this problem that you thought you had, it's usually so simple. It's so easy.
Yeah.
It's like you're like, how did I never think of this? What is happening?
And this is that bit about like finding the pleasure, finding where that is, finding your formula, whatever that is. If you really wanted to be in water, you'll find a way to be in water.
Precisely.
Yeah, true.
And it's been a lifesaver because I haven't been able to get to the beach at all. So now I just turn on.
Yeah.
So this is ridiculous, but you are welcome to try this for yourself. I play ocean wave sounds really loudly.
Yeah.
And then I sit in my bathtub and then I close my eyes and I'm like, I'm on the beach. I'm in the water.
I think that's really smart. Yeah, if you can't get there, especially now when we're all locked down and stuff, then that makes the most sense to me.
Beautiful.
Yeah, no, totally.
Beautiful.
It's hey man, I've been doing this for a while, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a part of me that's like, this is so dumb. But it
worked, right?
Basic. This is so basic. Nobody, like, please don't share with anyone how long it took you to come up with this idea. But
right,
I'm sure there's like 5 more Aakritis out there who'll just hear this and be like, oh damn, I could do that. Like,
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So embarrassment for you.
There you go. Dialing up pleasure. Dialing up the pleasure. Oh, Aakriti, this has been our pleasure to be with you and spend this time. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing your beautiful gifts. And thank you for sharing with us. And reach out, get in touch with Aakriti. She's fabulous. You'll just feel great. Just wonderful. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much for
having me. Thank you for having me again.
Yes. And Aakriti is going to be doing a masterclass for us as well.
Yes, that's right.
I think it's her feeding time.
Okay. We will let you go.
Yes.
But we will see you again very soon. Thank you again so much. I'm Heather.
I'm Ryan. And this has been...
And this is Aakriti.
Yeah.
I know, because
and this has been Confidence Through Cabaret. Thanking you and reminding you that it is your body, your world, your stage.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.